So y'all, can we talk about this Danae Jackson interview on the Dear Wifey podcast? Because my Lord today. First of all, where are my manners? My name is Jamila, aka Saltwater Daughter. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who have been here for a while, child, I know. I broke my promise to you and myself about posting more consistent content and a different type of content. We'll address it in another video. I really want to get into this Danae Jackson interview. Because child, I watched it and I was like, I got to talk about this to somebody. So let's get into it. So yes, Danae Jackson did an interview on the Dear Wifey podcast with Latarius Whitfield. I think that's how you say his name. So Latarius Whitfield, I'm not that familiar with him. He does come across my timeline. I've seen clips. I think I've watched 1 or 2 episodes, but I'm not really his audience. That's just not my thing. But from what I see of him, he seems to be a great guy. Church girls, why haven't y'all husbanded Latarius Whitfield yet? Why ain't none of y'all snatched him up? He's a good-looking guy. He seems to be healed from his trauma and, you know, his past transgressions. Why haven't y'all husbanded him? Y'all don't tell me that man's problematic. Please don't tell me he's problematic. I can't take it. He seemed to be the perfect person to do this interview. Again, I don't know a whole lot about him, but I do know that, you know, both him and Danae kind of have the same type of audience, the Christian, particularly women audience. He was very gentle with her. She seemed to be very comfortable with him. So I think he was just a great person to do the interview. First of all, she looked beautiful. She looked so pretty. She seemed to be glowing. You can tell that she is on the other side of what she's been through, or she's moving on the other side of what she's been through in the past. I mean, it's a far cry from the helmet of salvation, right? When she was sitting next to her husband, her ex-husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband. Child, we'll get into that later because she's going to address that in part 2 of this interview, which hasn't aired yet. But in this part of the interview, she gave us a lot of her backstory. So she talked about feeling abandoned by her father growing up. Her parents were teenage parents. There was some question whether she was her father's child. I guess she felt like her father never really wanted her. And then he died when she was young. So, you know, she had these abandonment issues when it comes to men. She said that she didn't really feel good about herself. She talked about a sexual assault. And in fact, she met Derek about 3 weeks after experiencing a sexual assault, right? They met at Tuskegee University. She said she was the nerdy girl, the awkward girl. She went to an all-white school she's from Denver, Colorado. She went to an all-white school. Now she's at this HBCU. She said she felt really awkward and, you know, she had the pimples on her face. She was the nerdy girl, the smart girl, the nerdy girl. And Derek approached her. So when I heard her tell this story about how she met Derek, I immediately thought about 3 different men that I have talked to on 3 different occasions who have all of them were trash to women, by the way, but all 3 of them kind of joked about how they approached women that they deemed less desirable. And I'm not saying, you know, Danae is a beautiful girl, but I'm saying how she described herself as an awkward girl. She had pimples all over her face. She was shy. She was, you know, just uncomfortable in this HBCU space. And Derek approached her, and the first thing he said to her is, "Are you a model?" Right? Like, you know, trying to flatter her. And then he asked her, you know, "Would you tutor me?" But in tutoring her, he was flirting with her and doing all of those things. And I thought about the way that all 3 of those men said that they tended to do this to those women to get what they wanted. One of them was a former coworker, and he talked about how he would do that. He said it in front of me and other women, but he said that he would do that to get the women to, you know, basically pick up his slack. And then some of these same women, anyway, that's neither here or there. But I'm like, did y'all not hear what he just said? He basically said he's going to charm you if he thinks you ugly. Anyway, again, I'm not saying that he even thought that Danae was unattractive, but maybe he saw that she was not fully confident in herself. She hadn't come into herself yet. You get what I'm saying? And so I feel like he was predatory with her from the beginning. He said she was a bigger girl, but Derek liked all of that. You know, Danae got a little body yaddy yaddy under all of that, right? And as someone who was a bigger girl once, I will tell you that ain't nobody, I ain't never had a problem having anybody pull up to this bumper, whether the scale said 237 or whether it says what it says now. Amen. Anyway, she said that her and Derek, you know, she was tutoring him and they started spending more time together and then they started dating. She said throughout the entire time that they were dating, Derek was cheating on her, right? He was this football player. He was attractive and all of that. She was this nerdy girl. And this is what she said about herself. And, you know, he would cheat on her. He would have other girlfriends or whatever, but she would always take him back. And then she talked about having this guy friend that she tried to like create the illusion that she was cheating with him to make Derek jealous, right? And I'm just like, well, girl, why didn't you just cheat with him? I'm just saying. Y'all forgive me, I'm a little hoarse. I'm getting over a cold. But yeah, she said that Fabian would set up these schemes. Instead of saying it was a scheme that Todd set up, we need to start saying it was a scheme that Danae and Fabian set up. But anyway, that she would try to create these scenarios to make it appear that she had someone else, but she was still pining for Derek that whole time. And I'm just like, this is so problematic to me. She said she used to go through his phone. He would record himself having sex with all these other women. I'm older than him, so I passed this era. But why, ladies, nieces, come here, let me talk to you for a second. Why are y'all letting these men record you having sex with them? I get it. We want to be freaky every now and then. We want to have a little fun. Let's make a home porn. You know, we all been, but I'm just like, y'all just letting your slide, your sneaky links record you. What is up with y'all? This might be what the kids are doing. Everybody's just recording themselves fucking all over the place. But if I was to see videos of my man having sex with multiple women, that tells me that something is not right with him, right? I mean, like, yeah, I get every now and then, but like, you got all these videos of you having sex with all of these women, and not only would she go through his phone and look at these videos, but she said she would study these women. She would go to their social media profiles. She would try to imitate their hair, their style. She would try to emulate what they were doing with her man sexually in order to get Derek to choose her. My Lord today. My Lord today. You talking about somebody who was broken. Oh my God. That just anyway, she would go through his phone regularly and see all of these videos, and instead of telling him about it or leaving, just walking out the door, she would cry about it. She would get upset about it. She would do these little manipulative things, like she talked about sitting in the closet, and then when he would ask her, why are you sitting in the closet crying, she would say, I'm crying about my dad, so that he would console her. But she would never tell him exactly why she was upset. Although I think it's manipulative as hell, I think it's dishonest, I think it's toxic to both her and Derek. I think that I can admit that I too have been harmed, not in that way, God, not in that way, but I'm talking about more, you know, family relationships or, you know, friendships, non-romantic relationships where I have known something has been said about me or I've been betrayed in a certain type of way. And instead of addressing it head on, I would not address it. I would just try to prove my worth even more, right? And you know, I've been through this is why I can talk. It's Mental Health Month. Fuck it, let's talk about it. But I can talk about it freely now, and I can take accountability for those things because I've done the work and really unpacked as to why I would not directly address things, directly stand up for myself, why I would be passive aggressive or just allow myself to continue to be treated like that. Once I did the work, I understood why I would do that, and then I was able to remove myself from certain situations. And I feel like Danae is on the same path, but the one thing she talked about is when she did try to, and I could relate to this too, right? When the times that you do try to stand up for yourself, when you're dealing with someone with I hate that word narcissistic because sometimes we diagnose people, right? We overuse that word, but I'm going to say Derek has some narcissistic tendencies. But when you deal with people who have any of those traits, the one thing that they do is they respond to you with rage, right? They flip it back on you, right? Especially if they see that you are very insecure and all of that, right? They will flip it back on you, and then you will end up feeling bad, and or they will give you so much venom that you are so afraid of the backlash that you will just hold it all inside, right? And you will continue to try to beg for that person to love you in the way that you want to be loved, right? And I think, well, I know, because this is exactly what she said in this video. And so although I was kind of like, oh my God, girl, like, why didn't you just tell her? I also understood for somebody who has not had these experiences, who know how to deal with conflict or being mistreated in a more healthier way. Yeah, I know that was just like, what? Right? But I could understand where she was coming from with that. Derek was never good to her. He was never faithful to her. He never treated her well. And what I saw in this interview is that she was taking accountability for her role in how she allowed herself to be treated for all of those years. I think that when you continue to allow yourself to be treated in the way that Derek treated her, you fall further and further and further into a pit of how can I say this? Just not believing that you deserve to be treated like a damn human being. And you continue to beg people, and I'm not saying, please love me, love me, love me, but beg people by continuing to show your loyalty, continuing to overextend yourself, continuing to just even engage with them, right? And like I say, I know it all too well because I've been there. Not necessarily, well, even in romantic relationships, but even in friendships and even, like I said, family relationships. And I really want to reiterate that because this interview dropped, I saw it last night, but I haven't really been paying attention to too many of the discussions, but I know that word accountability, this is another word that I have grown to hate. But that word, and I'll tell you why in just a second, but I know people are going to say she needs to be accountable, 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 accountable. And she's literally being accountable in this video. She's literally admitting to the things that she did and the things that she allowed. But people are going to like not have empathy for her because they're going to say, well, that was her fault. She needs to be accountable. And yes, we are all responsible for how people treat us. But I will say that unhealed people tend to attract a certain type of person. And just because people can do things to you doesn't mean that they should. So Derek is responsible for the things that he put her through as well. But anyway, she said after they graduated from college, I think they were off again, or they were together for a while, and then she caught him cheating again and they were off again, but she still remained, his little sneaky link or whatever, right? They were having a sexual relationship. And he was in the open with this at this time, right? She said her and the other women were passing each other by on the stairwell, right? So it was no secret at that time. So when it comes to that, I gotta put it on her and the other women. Y'all allowed this shit, right? And especially Danae, because Danae is the only one who's speaking out. I have a feeling that some of these other women are gonna start speaking out from back in the day. But anyway, Danae knew that this is not what she wanted, but I think he had such a chokehold on her. Her self-esteem was such in the toilet at this time. She allowed this, right? She agreed to this. Like, I'm passing sis by in the hall, right? As she goes to be with Derek, and I'm just like, girl, that is a hot mess. During all of these times, she has gotten pregnant 3 times. So she said that she had 3. And sometimes during this sneaky link, on and on again, relationship, situationship, whatever. She got pregnant for the fourth time, and they both moved to Atlanta. Now, she said that they were supposed to move to Atlanta together because they were together. They were on when they made the decision to move to Atlanta. She had already gotten a job in Atlanta. He moved to Atlanta. By this time, he is sitting in his car doing these videos, telling the women, not to deal with men like him, right? Acting like he's not men like him, right? So at this time, he's growing popularity on social media and all of this, but he's got all of this foolishness going on around him, right? So then they move to Atlanta. She has her own place. He has his own place, but she gets pregnant now for the fourth time. This time she decides that she is not terminating the pregnancy. And she basically says, I'm going to move back to Denver and be with my mom. But then she calls Derek's mother, and she lets Derek's mother know that she is pregnant and Derek is playing in her face and she cannot continue to do this with him. And I'm like, girl, y'all, we love to get in good with the mamas and the sisters, right? Because we think that the mamas and the sisters are going to take up for us. And sometimes the mamas and the sisters will pressure their sons to act right, or pretend to act right. But mamas, sisters, daddies, if he is trash, he gonna be trash, all right? And Danae found out the hard way. I believe that Derek's mother was like, all right, and Derek's mother's Jamaican too? Oh no. That Jamaican lady said, listen, you done got this girl pregnant. You are going to do the right thing, right? So she says her lease was up in her apartment. She ends up moving in with Derek. She's pregnant with him. They're kind of together, but they're kind of not. I don't know. But anyway, she has this conversation with Derek's mother. And then she says out the blue, her mother calls her and was like, Derek just called me and asked for your hand in marriage. And she was like, I thought you and him wasn't together. And she was like, we're not together. But, he wants to marry me? Ooh. So Derek married. And they have a housewarming party for a house that they moved in together. Now, the reason why they moved in together is because they got this baby now, but they really not together. But anyway, they have this housewarming party. But the whole time, Danae knows that Derek is about to propose to her, even though they're technically not really together. Make this make sense. So, yes, Danae was being manipulative and calculated and all of that to try to win her man. And she literally says this. I don't even fault Danae for that, because most of us have been socially conditioned to believe that we are worthless if we don't have a husband, if we haven't been chosen. Even though 9 times out of 10, we aren't the ones being chosen. We are usually forcing somebody to choose us, but that's a conversation for another day. But anyway, society makes us feel like we are worthless if we are nobody's wife or nobody's mother. So I get it, right? Why she was doing all of these things. But anyway, they got this baby now. Derek done put a will you marry me bib on the baby. He done proposed to her, all this pomp and circumstance in front of her family. And she already said that her mama didn't like Derek. See, her mama knew who Derek was from day one. So, but anyway, the families seem to be happy. Oh, yay, they're getting engaged. They get engaged. And then they go to premarital counseling. Derek does not want to finish the premarital counseling because she caught him cheating again. And, and then she started addressing all the sex videos and things that she did not address before. Derek did not want to deal with this. Now, when we used to see Derek sitting in his car on our Instagram pages, Derek used to be telling us that we need to deal with men who go to therapy. But Derek wasn't going to therapy his damn self. I mean, what was so funny about this whole thing? I remember when everything, when the shit hit the fan with Derek, right? Like matter of fact, this is one guy I'm thinking of in particular, one of my homeboys. And actually, he's not even my homeboy because he said some horrific things about Black women, and I had to block him from social media and life. But anyway, he was my homeboy at the time. I remember him running. Oh, did you see that? Did you see? Y'all was listening to that man and he was, I told y'all he was full of it. And I was like, you know, yeah, he was a hypocrite because he was not practicing what he was preaching, but everything Derek was saying is absolutely correct. Derek was just talking about himself. That's it. Anyway, I'm getting hoarse. Let me hurry up and wrap this video up. In fact, she said to him one time as his popularity was growing, like, do you really believe some of the things that you be saying on these social medias? Do you believe it? Because you are definitely not practicing it. But she has held herself accountable for, you know, wanting to win, wanting to be a wife. That's all she's ever dreamed of. She's got the, you know, she's had this baby now. And now she is pregnant with the next baby, right? So they never finished the premarital counseling. She's still catching him with other women and all of that, but she is pregnant with the next baby. And so the wedding goes on. For her, I'm sure it was about keeping up the appearances, probably thinking that, you know, once we got married, things were going to change. These are the fantasies that many of us have been socially conditioned to believe, right? So, you know, no different. She's no different. Again, they get married, but she says a lot of these other women have not disappeared. Now, the public didn't really know about their marriage. It really wasn't none of our business, but you know, he never made that public. He was just continuing to do the videos. And then she got behind him, and she is the one that really made his business catapult. And I'm sure she's going to get more into that into part 2. But so he was doing the thing in the car. He was the face of the business, but she was the one that really made the business grow, like the paid content, the online paid content that you could get. She started hiring staff or encouraging him to hire staff. The speaking engagements, all of the book, all of that kind of stuff. This was Danae's work, not necessarily Derek's. Derek was the face, but she was the brains behind that operation, right? And that man is worth millions. I don't know if he still is, but at one point he was worth millions, right? I read his book and I was looking for it today and I could not find it. So I must have given it to somebody. But I think he has a couple of books, but the book that I'm referring to, I think it was Don't Forget Your Crown or something like that. But in that book, he tells this story as well. Not as detailed as Danae tells it, but he talks about being, you know, an F-boy and playing emotionally manipulative games with women, flipping things back on them, telling them that they're insecure, you know, gaslighting them. He talks about all of that in the book. And he talks about having his awakening and realizing that Danae, and this is, I think that was like the first time he called her name in the book, but he said that Danae was the one, that she was the one he wanted to be with, that she was all that he ever needed, but he, you know, wanted to be a player, whatever. Like this is what he says in the book. And so it seems like he's partially telling the truth and partially lying in that book, right? He left a lot out. I don't remember them talking about the, you know, her getting pregnant and him, you know, getting a call maybe from his mom or whatever. He made it seem like he had this awakening and he realized that Danae was the one, right? And it got me to wondering if Danae wasn't the damn ghostwriter on that book. The whole story is fascinating. The fact that Derek built an empire on playing with women's emotions in the worst way possible, I'm still baffled by that. And the fact that he still has an audience, because after he was exposed the first time, you know, he took the Christian angle, right? He was like, you know, I'm a man of God now, I'm forgiven, you know, and then we saw the bonnet of salvation, and we saw Danae over there completely unhinged and, you know, using Christian rhetoric to the extreme. And again, I feel so sorry for sis, because I feel like, you know, she's clearly a Christian woman who I believe she is going to do big things. But what we saw back then was someone who was in the church and unhinged, right? But we're seeing someone completely different. So I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy for her healing. And I think that she is going to do some big things. She probably will never see this video, but in case she does, Danae Jackson, I owe you an apology. You know, because I laughed at the bonnet of salvation. I laughed at some of the things that I saw that she was doing on the internet. I laughed when she put a curse on us, right? But I've also said, you know, I've said it on TikTok, like when like she did all of that and then he turned around and divorced her. And I think the only reason he turned around and divorced her and made it public was because he got exposed yet again, right? And he knew that he never, I'm not saying he never loved her, I'm not going to say that, but I think that he knew he never really wanted to settle down with her when he did. But anyway, yeah, well, I think a lot of us owe that lady an apology, because although we may have not had partners who were public figures, or we have not become unhinged in that way publicly, many of us have allowed ourselves to be treated certain ways. Many of us have allowed men to drive us absolutely insane, right? And so, you know, I'm Danae, Danae is me, right? Danae is a lot of us. Maybe not to that extent, maybe not publicly, but, you know, many of us have been in her shoes. So anyway, it was a great interview. I cannot wait till part two. To my regular subscribers, listen, I'm gonna talk to y'all in another video. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.